Vite also has mode which allows us to create libraries. And in this lesson, let's see what tools Vite provides us with to create NPM packages. So for that, we need to do a little preparation first. Let's create an empty folder 18 and then switch over to this folder in our terminal. And here I'm going to create two Vite projects. First one will be our client application, which is going to import the custom package we're going to create. And the second project will be the library itself. So let's start with creating the first client application. Let's run npm create Vite latest to scaffold default Vite project. I'm gonna call this project simply app. We are not going to use any frameworks, so I'll go with an option vanilla.js, and also we will not use TypeScript. And now right next to the app folder, let's create another Vite project, which is going to contain the library. So let's run the same command npm create Vite latest. I'll call this project leap, and basically make the same choices. We'll use vanilla.js without using TypeScript. So now let's just open up folders with these projects in a separate terminal tabs, and then we can start working on our npm package. So let's open up main JavaScript file of our library. From here, we're going to remove everything and install all npm dependencies by running npm install. Next, just to make sure that our application can be open in a browser, let's run development server by running npm run dev. Switch over to the browser and make sure application is loaded. Everything looks good, so let's start creating JavaScript file which will contain functionality of our package. I'm gonna place this file inside the source folder, and the file will be called index.js. So the package we're about to create will contain only one utility function called plug, which is going to accept array of objects as the first parameter, and the name of the key, which we'll have to extract from every object from the array, as the second parameter. And in here we're going to loop over every object in this collection and extract key passed as a second parameter field. And eventually this function is gonna give us an array which contains only values of the specified key. And just to test out this functionality, we're gonna create an array of objects. For example, let's create array of users, where every object will contain two keys, name of the user and age. I'm gonna add 3 objects in this array and then populate each field with random data. Let's do the same for the age property, and down here I'm going to print the result of our function plug. We'll call this function with our array of users, and the property we need to extract will be name. And now in a console we're supposed to receive an array which will consist only of the user names. And of course, to execute this script in a browser, let's reference it from index.html. And as expected, we can see an array of usernames. But of course, since this project is intended to be an npm package, we need to build this project as npm library. And we need to tell Vite that our project is actually the package that other users can install. So let's create configuration file viteconfig.js and export configuration object. So let's add an object build, within which there will be another object lib. And by specifying this lib object, we are informing Vite that our project is actually the package, and Vite has to build this project differently. So the first option in this object is entry, which will basically point to the JavaScript file of our package. Let's use function resolve to resolve the absolute path to JavaScript file index.js. And then let's assign name to our package. I'm gonna call it plug. And also let's specify another option, file name. And this option will tell Vite which file name it should assign to the final bundled script of our library. As always, let's go ahead and write down an import statement for the function resolve that should be imported from the standard Node.js module path. And then all that code that was used to test our function, we are going to comment out, because this is not client application, so we're not going to use our function plug in this project. But instead it is intended to be used by other users by installing our package into their applications. And now it's finally time to build our package. So in the terminal, let's execute npm run build. And looks like I have specified wrong path to the index file. Let's quickly get back to vite.config.js and fix this path. The folder name should be source. So right now, after I'm gonna build this project by running npm run build, we can see that Vite has generated two assets. Those are build files of our package. And the reason why there are two files is because Vite has generated two versions of our package. The first version will be used when users will import our package by using ECMAScript modules, and the second version will be imported if users will use function require while importing our package. So now let's take a look at the content of these files. Firstly, let's open up log.js, which is inside of a dist folder. Here we can only see the code of our custom function, which was minified a little bit, and then this function was exported by using alias plug. And this file is what's gonna be imported when users are going to import our library by using native ECMAScript module syntax. And now let's open up another file, plug umd.cjs. So as was said before, this version of the library is going to be imported when users are going to use function require to import our library. But this is not all, and in order to make our package so that it can be imported, we still have to do some tweaks inside package.json. So here I'm going to assign different name to our library. Let's call it plug. Then we're gonna have to specify a couple more keys in this object, and specifically those keys are main and module. And by using these keys, we're specifying paths to the build files. So when users are going to import our library by using require, the file that should be imported in this case, we're specifying under the key main. And in case of the native ECMAScript modules, we're gonna import file plug.js. And now I'm gonna have to specify another object, exports, with almost the same content, since our library is exposing only one import, meaning that it has only one entry point. Let's specify this entry point. And here we have to use a couple more keys, import and require, and these keys will also contain paths to the files that have to be imported, in case we're using ECMAScript modules or function require to import our library. So now everything is ready to actually start using our library in our client application. Let's go to our client application and open up main JavaScript file. Let's clear this file, and then we have to somehow import our library into this application without actually publishing our package in the NPM registry. We are actually also going to see an example where we will publish the package, but it will come in one of the next lessons. And for now, I'm going to make our library globally available in the operating system. And NPM allows us to do that by executing the following command inside of that library that we have to make globally available. And this command is npm link. So I'm going to execute this command in the root of our library project. And then later I will be able to link to this library from our client application. But for now, let's switch over to the root of our client application and install all npm dependencies. So now I need to get the code of our library in the node modules folder of our client application. And since we have previously made our library globally available in the operating system, we can simply link to that library by running npm link and the library name in the root of our client application. And right away we can see that this command has created the link with the same name as our library, and this link points to the source code of our library. And finally, it is time to test the functionality of our package in this application. So I'm gonna start development server, and now it's finally time to test the functionality of our package from our client application. And to do that, let's just copy over that commented code we have previously put in the JavaScript file of our package, cut it from here, and move it inside main.js of our client application. But of course here this function plug should be imported from our custom package, so let's write down an import statement for this function and import this function using our package name plug, the same name which is used inside node modules folder. And by actually importing our library in this way, it will actually go ahead and import the function from this file plug.js, because we have previously specified path to this file inside the package.json of our package source code. And now let's just add some random content inside the index.html of our client application. I'm going to show a heading here. And here we go, we got expected result in our console. So our function plug, which was imported from our custom package, has extracted usernames from the array of user objects. So at the end, let's just recall what we have done in order to implement this library. In our library project, we have created a file with the name index.js, where we have implemented our function plug. And then by specifying an object under the key lib inside Vite configuration, we have told Vite that this project should be built as an NPM package instead of a client application. And here under the entry key, we have pointed to the file, which contains the source code of our library. And we've also used a couple more keys to assign name to this library, as well as the file name that should be used for bundled JavaScript file after the build. Then inside package.json file, we have added some extra configurations to specify which files should be imported in case our users are going to import our library by using standard ECMAScript modules or by using function require. And then just to be able to use this library inside a client application without actually publishing this library to the NPM registry, we have made this library globally available by running npm link in the root of this project. And then inside the root of our client application, we ran npm link and the library name that we had to add to node modules folder. And this command has created a special link inside node modules folder of the client application with the same name as our package name plug. And this link points directly to the source code of our package, which eventually allowed us to import this library from our application's JavaScript code. And these are the basics of developing JavaScript packages by using Vite. In the upcoming lessons, we're going to learn about this whole process even more. So in the previous lesson, we have developed the package by using Vite library mode and then included that package in here in our client application. And that time we had only one entry point in our package. But what if we'd like to create such package that would expose more than one entry point? And what I mean by that is this, that we could basically import some functionality like this from the subpath. So in this lesson, let's figure out how this can be done. Firstly, let's recall what functionality our package exposes. So in the index.js file of our package, we have only one function, plug. And then to be able to import this function from the client applications, we had to modify package.json file. And in here we had to specify a key called module, where we have basically provided the path to our main library file with that function. And then in our client application, it would basically let us import in functionality from our package by using its name, like so. So now we're going to create another file which will also export some functionality. So in our package, let's create new file called log.js, which is also inside the source folder. And here for demonstration, we're also going to create only one function called log, which is basically going to be a wrapper around console log method. We're not going to complicate things too much because our main job here is to configure Vite in such a way so it can support multiple entry points of our package. So next we're going to add configuration to Vite config.js file to generate two different bundles for every JavaScript file of our package, so that later we could import function log from the subpath in the client application like this. So before going back to our package project, let's just use this function login here to print out array of users. Later we're gonna need this to test our package. And now back to our package project. let's go inside vite.config.js, and here we're going to tell Vite about all our entry points of our package. So basically, instead of specifying in here only one path, we will convert this to array, which will contain all references to all files that we're going to expose in our package. So I'm gonna add another entry in here and reference that new file called log.js. So this way we have told Vite about all our entry points, and now let's see what will be generated when we run npm run build. So basically when we'll try to build our package, and as we can see, Vite has generated 4 files. So 2 files for every entry point, because in order to provide support for importing our package as a CommonJS module by using function require, Vite generates separate bundles. And that is why we have 4 JavaScript files here instead of 2. But they all have the same name, so how can we customize the name? And thankfully, that option, file name inside configuration file, also can accept closure. And this closure takes 2 parameters. First one is format, that we are generating bundle for either ECMAScript 6 or CommonJS module. And the second parameter here is the source JavaScript file name, which is in our case, all JavaScript files are contained within source folder. So the name parameter will be either index or log. And here I'm gonna use a basic condition and check if Vite is currently generating bundle for ECMAScript module. We're going to use the following format for the file name. And if Vite is currently generating bundle for CommonJS module, besides using name as a file name, we're also going to use custom extension for this file specified inside format parameter. And this way we have customized names that Vite is going to produce while generating our bundles. Let's see what those names are. One more time, let's generate our bundles by executing npm run build. And this time we still see 4 files, but all of these files now have more appropriate names. And again, all these files have been generated inside the dist folder of our package project. So now back to file package.json, and in here, in order to provide the way for importing our submodule by client applications, we also need to add an entry for our second entry point inside this export object. So let's add another object and use the key log. This will be a key what client applications will use when they are gonna import our submodule log, just like we have already used in the main.js of our client application in this import. And also, since we have modified the names which Vite produces while generating bundles, we also need to correct these names inside package.json. So firstly, let's replace plug word with index in all these file names. And then one by one, let's correct every path so it points to the correct file from the dist folder. Otherwise, importing things from our package is not going to work. And now it's time to check if we will be able to import functionality from the submodule of our package. So, instead of publishing our package to npm registry, we have used one trick by running command npm link inside the project of our package in order to make this package available globally in the operating system. And in addition to that, to add a link to this package into node modules folder of the client application, we had to execute npm link but with package name inside the root of our client application, and this way this command will add link to our package inside node modules folder. And finally, let's get back to testing and run development server inside our client application so that we could test if we would be able to import functionality from this submodule log and then use this imported function to print out list of users in here. And now switch over to the browser, and as we can see, we have 2 logs here, first of which is produced by our custom function log that comes from our package. So importing functionality from the second entry point of our package worked fine. And we could even remove this log statement and instead print out result of the function plug by using our custom log function. Everything is working fine, so in this lesson we have reviewed how to build our library in case it has more than one entry point. And as we can see, Vite makes this process very simple. Let's continue in the next lesson. Alright, so far we have created the library with multiple entry points. And then in our client application we have imported the functionality from those two entry points right here, from the main entry point plug and from submodule log. And just as a reminder, the way we have organized the code in our library is as follows. So in here we have a couple of JavaScript files inside source folder, where each of those files contains only one function. And then to tell Node.js which modules have to be imported, whenever client application will import functionality from our library by using either main entry point or sub entry point, which in our case is called log, we have provided the path in here for every build file which corresponds to every entry point of our library. Whether client-side application is going to use native ECMAScript modules to import functionality from our package or CommonJS modules. In both of these cases, imports from our library are going to work fine. But so far we have only tested importing functionality from our library by using native ECMAScript modules. And in this case, Node, while importing these modules, looks into key import of the package.json file of our library in order to find the file which it should import. And of course, each of these paths specified in this package.json file points to build files of our library that Vite has generated during the build process. And it placed all these build files inside this folder by default. So now let's see if it is going to work if in our client application, instead of using native ES6 imports, we're going to use CommonJS syntax by using function require. So I'm going to convert both of these imports to use function require like this. And all this I'm doing inside of the main JavaScript file of our main client application, which imports functionality from the library. And now instead of checking the result in the browser, we're going to run this script main.js by using node. So in the terminal, I'm going to run node and define name. And as we can see, we got an error saying that require is not defined in ES module scope. And in order to fix this issue, we have to rename an extension of this script on CJS, so that Node.js will treat this module as CommonJS module. But we are going to do it a bit differently, and instead of renaming the current file, I'm going to make a copy of this file with an extension of CJS like so. And then let's just revert all the changes we have previously made to the main.js file and leave file with an extension CJS as is, which still uses syntax of CommonJS modules with require function calls. And now again, let's execute main.cjs script in the Node environment. And in this case, as we can see, everything worked fine, we got a result. And as a reminder, this script just extracts usernames from the array of user objects, and then it prints out the new array, which consists only of usernames. So that's what we are seeing in here. So as you can see, it is possible to use our library in both cases, whenever client application uses native ECMAScript import syntax or syntax of CommonJS modules by using function require to import functionality from the library. And this is possible because Vite, while building our library, has generated two versions of our library, the one which is intended to be used with native ECMAScript imports, and another one for importing functionality by using CommonJS syntax, in other words, by using function require. And of course, if I'm gonna go back to the source code of our library, and in here I'm going to remove versions of CJS builds, those are the files responsible for providing support to import our library as CommonJS modules. Then after removal both of these files from the dist folder, index.cjs and log.cjs, if we'll try to execute our main.cjs script from the client application, which still uses CommonJS syntax to import modules from our library. In this case, we're gonna get the following error. Well, obviously because we have just removed those files that were previously providing support to import functionality from our package by using CommonJS syntax. So as we can see, it's very good that while building our library, Vite generates two sets of the build files The first set of files is intended to be imported as normal ECMAScript modules, and the second set of files provides support whenever users are going to import functionality from our library by using require function. So let's continue reviewing possibilities of building libraries with Vite in the next lesson. So by now we have already created NPM package and use this package in the client application. Let's start development server by running npm run dev to start our application in the browser. And the result of using our custom package is shown in a console. It basically have extracted usernames from the initial array of the user objects. And all of that has been implemented in previous lessons. So let's just recall how that works. In the main script of our client application, we are importing functionality from our package, but not only from the main module of our package, also from the submodule log. And currently the project which contains our package has two JavaScript files, index.js and log.js, and each of these files exports one function. And these two functions we are actually importing in our client application from different submodules. But as we can see, currently our package is pretty simple. It doesn't even use any third-party libraries. So in this lesson we're going to review how to integrate third-party library in our custom package. So in this file index.js we're going to import third-party library called collect.js, which basically has lots of utilities to work with array of objects. And we're going to leverage this function inside of our plug function, but firstly, let's just rename this function on plug and log. And then we'll basically do the same, which is extract a key from each object of the collection. But this time we're gonna use plug method on our collection. And we'll basically do the same here, but by using method plug, which library collect.js provides us with, like so. And then besides returning this result, we're also going to log the result in this function. And right after, we return this result. So besides the main purpose of this function, we're also logging the result in the console right away. And then let's see what is going to happen if we'll try to build this library. So in the terminal, let's run npm run build. And we are receiving the following error that the collect.js library cannot be imported since this library does not exist in our package. So what we need to do is to actually install this library by running npm install collect.js. And now once I'm gonna start the build process once again, this time it worked. We still see 4 build files, but this time we can notice that the sizes of some files drastically increased. For example, the size of the main file index.js is now almost 60 kilobytes. And that is because when we were importing library collect.js in our script, Vite has actually taken the whole source code of third-party library and put it in the build, and which is why the resulting file of our library has much bigger size now. But before we'll solve this problem, let's just import our new function plug and log in the client application and see if it's gonna work. So now we don't need to additionally call the log function in order to print results in a console, because the new function plug and log is going to extract keys from every object of the array, as well as print the result in a console. And in the console, as we can see, we are seeing expected result, with the difference that our result is contained within items property of the wrapper object. That's how the library collect.js works. It returns us not only the resulting array, but an object, which wraps our collection. But this is not the most optimal solution of building our libraries, because anytime we're going to import third-party library, the file size of our library will be drastically increased. So let's see what we can do about it and what Vite has to offer in this regard. So moving on, let's open up configuration file vite.config.js, and in here we're gonna add another option which is called rollup options, which will be an object with the key external, and this is where we have to specify library names, which we don't need to be bundled along with the code of our library. And since by now we're using only one third-party library called collect.js, I'm gonna include only one name in this array, like so. And then let's watch the size of the bundled file index.js. So currently the size of index.js file is around 60 kilobytes, but after I rerun the build process by executing npm run build, this time we see that the file size was drastically dropped. And if we're gonna take a look at the content of the build file index.js, we're seeing only our code in here and the import of the library collect.js, but the source code of this library is absent, and which is why we don't even need to install the library collect.js in our project. So let's remove this dependency by running npm uninstall and dependency name. And let's just rerun the build process of our package once again by executing npm run build. So now if we'll go to the browser and check the result in our client application again, we're supposed to get an error since our package relies on the third-party library collect.js, but that library was not included in the build version of our package. But surprisingly, as we can see, we didn't receive any errors, so it worked. And the reason it worked is that previously when we started development server, Vite has gone ahead and cached some dependencies in the folder .vite, which is inside of node modules. And this folder has cached version of the library collect.js. So let's just go back to the editor, open up node modules folder of our client application, and remove that folder with cached dependencies called .vite. So now let's restart development server in the client application, and we are receiving an error that dependency client.js cannot be imported since it is missing from our client application as well as from the build file of our library. And the first thing that comes to mind is actually install this library into our client application. So let's do just that. I'm gonna execute npm install and specify library name collect.js. And then after running npm run dev again, we're receiving a different error, similar, but this time it could not resolve imports of our own package plug, because the link to our package, which we have previously added to the node modules folder of the client application by executing npm link, is gone for some reason. So let's just add the link to our package inside node modules folder one more time by running npm link and our package name. I am not going to explain in detail what this command is doing, since we were talking about it in one of the previous lessons. So now that we have added back link plug which points to our package inside node modules folder, we can try to start development server once again. And again, the previous error is back, that it cannot resolve dependency collect.js. So we're going to solve this problem in the next lesson when we will publish our package to the npm registry. And then instead of using npm link to make our package available to the client application, we're going to install our package as any other third-party dependency by running npm install. It's finally time to actually go ahead and publish our package into npm registry. And as a reminder, we are already importing functionality from our package in the main.js file of our client application. And the way we made it possible is by linking our local folder with the package to node modules folder of our client application by running the following command npm link and the name of the package we'd like to link to our client application. And then, as we can see inside node modules folder, we have the new link called plug, which points directly to the folder with our library. And now, instead of linking our local library, we're actually gonna go ahead and publish our package to npm registry. So first of all, what we have to do is to login. Let's run npm login in the root of our library, and we will be presented with a couple of prompts. Here we need to type in the username as well as the password that we have used to register on the npm website. And yes, side note, we need to be registered upfront in order to log into npm. Then we also have to enter our email address, and right after we will receive the code on our email. So let's enter this code in here, and as soon as we're gonna see this message, that means we were successfully authenticated. So I'll switch over to my browser, and right here, as we can see, I don't have any libraries in my npm account yet. So let's start the process of publishing our library to npm. First of all, let's go and open up file package.json of our library, and here the first thing that I'm gonna do is rename the value stored under the key name. Besides the name of our library, I'm also going to use namespace, this namespace should match username of the logged in user. And what this will do is it will basically make sure that we are not gonna get any naming collisions, because there is a high chance that the package with the name plugged already exists on npm. And now in the terminal, to publish the package, we have to run npm publish. This time we get an error saying that our library is considered to be private. And the reason is that in the package.json file we have the key private with the value true. So let's remove this key, run npm publish again, and it looks like publishing private packages is actually paid feature. So when running npm publish, we have to specify one flag called access with access modifier. In this case, I'm gonna use public. So this way, our library will be publicly visible. And finally, the command has finished with no errors. And if I'll switch over to the browser, in here I can see that my library was published. Next, let's go back to the editor. Inside the client application, let's open up package.json, and here let's remove the only dependency collect.js. We're also going to remove the folder with this dependency from node modules folder, as well as special folder .vite that Vite generates to store cached dependencies. And now, in order to install the library I have just published, we can use npm install and the full library name. The full name is stored in here under the name key of the package.json of our library project. So let's see what is going to happen when we run npm install and our library name. As we can see, the library was successfully installed. And now I can run development server by running npm run dev. And here I see the following error saying that some of the dependencies were not resolved. And those dependencies are from our library. And the reason is that currently our client application inside main.js file references old paths to import functionality from our library. So we have to properly update this import path by specifying full library name in here. Next, let's start development server again. This time we got a new error. And to understand what's going on in here, let's open up the folder with our package inside node modules folder of our client application. And here we can see that there is no folder dist with the built assets of our library. But in fact, inside the package.json file, we are referencing these files from the dist folder, because those are the files that have to be imported when users are going to import functionality from our library. So we actually have to do one more thing before publishing our package to npm. Let's go back to the package.json file of our library, and in here we have to specify the key files where we can list all the files and folders that have to be published. In our case, we only need to publish folder with the built assets, which is dist. So I'm going to specify one folder name in here. And then, once we do any change to our library, I'm also gonna have to republish this library, but with a different version number. We could update this version manually, or we could use npm command called npm version. So we also have to specify which version number we'd like to update, either the first one, second one, or the third one. In this case, it's not really important which one we're gonna update, so I'm gonna update the third one. And the word responsible for updating the third number is patch. Let's run this command. As we can see, our version number was updated, and also this number was updated inside package.json. And to grab the new version of this library in the client application, we have to reinstall it. And before installing the new version of this library in the client application, let's go inside node modules folder of our client application and manually remove the folder of our library from here. And right after that, we are ready to install a new version. Let's run npm install and our library name. And now if we'll take a look at the content of the library inside node modules folder, we can see here that this time only one folder is present, which is dist. This is that folder we have previously specified under the key files inside package.json of the library, and which is why only this folder has been published to npm. Let's run development server once again, and this time we also got an error, but the error message is different. so it cannot install the library collect.js, but in fact, we reference this library from the source code of our package right here inside index.js. But in fact, we have not installed this library in the client application as well as in our package. So this dependency is nowhere to be found. And the reason why this library was not included in the build file of our library is because inside vite.config.js, we have manually specified that Vite should not include this external dependency into final build of our library. So to fix this issue, we have to go inside of package JSON of our library, and in here let's specify one more key called pure dependencies. And these are the dependencies that our library depends on, but it doesn't include those dependencies. So actually client applications will be the ones who will be responsible to install this library in order to use our package. So let's specify here one pure dependency collect.js. This way we are saying that our library depends on this third-party library. And then of course I'm gonna have to republish our new version of the package. Let's firstly update the version of our package by running the corresponding command. And then let's go back inside the folder with our client application. Let's remove our previous version of the library from node modules folder and reinstall it by running npm install. So what actually happened this time is this: besides installing our library, we can see that inside node modules folder there is collect.js folder, which means dependency collect.js was automatically installed along with our package. And the reason it was installed automatically is because we have previously specified this dependency under pure dependencies key inside of our library. So from now on, when any client application is going to install our library, the dependency collect.js will be automatically installed. And finally, if we're gonna run development server inside of our client application, eventually it worked, and in the browser we can see an expected result in the console. And also let's see if production build is also going to work. I'm gonna run npm run build to build this client application. The build has finished without errors, so that's good. And now let's run this build in the browser by running npm run preview. And then by opening up this URL, we see the same result as in development mode. So we were able to successfully publish our package to npm registry. And additionally, our package contains external dependency collect.js, which is not bundled with our library, so all client applications that are going to use our library, once they're gonna install our library, all third-party libraries which our library depends upon, which in this case is only one dependency collect.js, they are going to be automatically installed. So that's about it for this lesson. Let's continue learning Vite in the next one.